Hello and welcome to the Leadership Lab, the podcast where we dissect life science success stories. I'm your host, Maurice, and I'm thrilled to bring you conversations with industry visionaries in the life science space who will discuss their successes, failures, challenges, and also the leaders who inspired them. Welcome to the Leadership Lab. My name is Maurice Thornton, and I am joined today by Franz-Werner Haas. He is the CEO of LimmaTech Biologics. Franz, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
Pleasure. So we've obviously had this in the mix for a while, and I'm really excited to talk to you today. I mean, you've had a pretty storied career. I think this is your second stint as a CEO, so I'm keen to understand the journey from and the lessons that you can kind of impart to people on running big companies and managing stress and career development and all these types of things. So, but as usual, I like to start at the beginning. And tell me a little bit about where you're from originally.
Well, I'm German by origin and actually working here in Switzerland. It's the first time working abroad.
Okay, well, it's a close kind of abroad. What do you think about the differences? I mean, how long has it been you've been here now?
It's actually, as a matter of fact, August, 2 years.
Okay. Biggest difference?
Biggest difference is it's a great country, which Germany is as well. To get super experienced people is, I think, a bit easier here from workspace. And it's super relaxed as a society as well, especially here in Zurich. So I enjoy it very much.
Okay. I'm going to come back to the talent piece later. I think that's an interesting point, especially for what I do. But so you're German originally. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
I grew up on the countryside next to Luxembourg, actually, 10 minutes drive to Luxembourg. Okay. It's a little city called Bitburg.
Is that the beer?
That's exactly.
It's
on the countryside. It's a place where a big brewery is, a city where roughly 10,000 Germans live and more Americans because there are 2 American air bases.
Oh, okay. And then it's the Bitburger is the beer. That's the
Bitburger is the beer.
I'm going to stick on the beer for a while.
Okay. This is where the people know it from.
Okay, good. And then, as a kid, did you grow up there? Did you stay in Bitburg the whole time, or did you move around, or was that kind of where you came of age?
That's exactly where I grew up, going there to school, but then later on changed into a boarding school, boys' school in a monastery, which was a great experience as well to grow up with, peers, and that was a great time. And only after that, for studies, then I moved to different cities.
And where was the boarding school?
Oh, this was even closer to Luxembourg. So this was 10-minute walk, super on the countryside. It's a small village with a monastery. And it was a good experience.
It's funny because, my wife wouldn't mind me talking about it. She also went to a boarding school and she loved it. She said it was like the best time. She had so much fun, living with all her best friends, basically. And I think about my kids doing it and I'm like, no, I don't think you're greedy. I want to keep you here. But you enjoyed it.
I loved it. It was a complete change. Of course, change for life. I was 14 when I moved to the boarding school. But exactly that. You're living with your friends. You have to deal with your social questions, especially in that age when you're growing up. And if you like people, then you will love it. Depending certainly on the circumstances, the surroundings and all of that. But this was a secured place on the countryside, as I said, with only boys and crazy stuff we did, which was super exciting. And certainly, it gave certain benchmarks for the rest of the life as well. And with some of the guys, I'm still in close contact.
Okay. And was it a strict type of place? Like you could make your bed every morning and, little...
Oh, definitely, yes.
Yeah?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
So it was all organized by rings and belts. And so first ring in the morning, you did get up. You had 15 minutes to do when you go into the shower, you had to be fast to be the first one in the shower because otherwise you had to wait. Same with the breakfast, same with the school and all of that. But it was good.
Okay. And then you stayed there until it was time to study.
That's correct.
And what were you like in school? Were you a book guy? Were you a sport guy? Were you, did you have hobbies? Or was it just causing mischief all the time?
Well, the latter part definitely was a big chunk of it. I'm not that the sportive guy, at the time, guys doing the exercise and all of that. I watched at that. But we had a swimming pool there as well.
Okay.
And this was really a fun part for me to do that. So football playing, and as it was a countryside, so we had a lot of playing in the woods, going out. This was really the fun part, to deal with my friends. And by that, we had a lot of exercise, because I would say, 3/4 of the time we have been outside, and we had to be outside. And therefore, there was a lot of exercise without realizing that, okay, this is sports, now you're doing extensively tennis or something like that, apart from swimming.
Yeah, okay. And so it was, school just sent you out, said, get outside, go do something?
After school, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, which was a complete change, because everything was organized by a bell. So you knew exactly, okay, you always try to get your way around if there's a rule at that age. So we tried to get around, which was fun, but there was a clear guidance. And after that, going to university, there was no guidance at all. So this was a complete change. It's like black and white from the style of living.
What was your favorite subject?
In school?
Yeah.
German. And then we had what we called social and politics. This was super interesting, because I'm not that much a technical guy.
Okay.
And like my father was. So that was really something. And that's it.
Okay. What did your dad do?
Well, he was a technician. Okay. And always, you put a car in front of him, and he would, put all the pieces apart and put it together again. And that's really super skilled and all of that. Yeah. If I would have been doing that, if I would have been able to put every part again together, I would have a few spare parts left, and I wouldn't know where these would go.
It's like when I put together IKEA furniture.
Yeah,
like
something
one
like
piece
that.
left. I'm like, well, where that was supposed to go.
Where should that be?
Okay. So you liked the politics piece, the German piece. What did you choose to study in university?
I had a long way to think about it. And there were two topics which were of super importance for me, or interest as well. The one was medicine, and the other was law. Because the law, most probably, if I would analyze, would go back and say, okay, this was, in legal, you have got a structure, a bit like I grew up. There is a structure, and on that structure you can build contracts, you can build relationships, but you can build societies as well. So that was super interesting for me, especially that I'm, not really able to do a lot technical parts with my hands. But that thinking about it, also going back in the history. So history is a part of my interest as well. So how things develop. And the other part is medicine. Not that my parents have been doctors or lawyers, but medicine, interestingly enough, biology was also something of interest for me. Also here, how the body works and all of that. So these were the two pieces of interest. And then I picked and chose law for a timing point, because there was a medicine test you had to do in order to get approved to the medical studies. And I said, okay, my favorite would be more in law, and therefore... Okay. Perhaps also I didn't know at the time really what it was, what law really means in terms of studies. Of course, I informed myself. But then I started to get interested, and so that's what I did.
Okay. Was there a particular type of law?
No, in Germany you start with the general law. So you have criminal law, you have administrative law, public law, and civil law. And you have to go through only later than in the practical part, you take your focus where to go.
And you earned a doctorate. But that's not necessary to practice, is it? I'm not sure in Germany. If you earn a PhD in law,
no.
you have to have a master's and then pass an exam, right? Or
well, no. In Germany, you have got two state exams. The first one is a theoretical part.
Yep.
Then you're graduated, and then you do the practical part. In Germany, if you study law to the end, everyone is trained as to be able to be a judge. And therefore, you have to do that. So the second state exam, then you are a full lawyer, full jurist. And then you can pick and choose to do a master's on top. And then you can pick and choose to say, are you going into the academic way? Is this where you see your future? Or you have got a specific topic you really want to scientifically go into the depth. And for that, you write a PhD thesis and then get a get a doctor.
So what was your PhD about?
This was about IP.
Good thing to know, I guess, where you ended up.
This was, not being able to really contribute a lot to science and technical parts because, for the skill set, but then to see from a legal point of view how to transform an idea, an innovation into a tradable good. And because if you publish it, it's out. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. So, but how you can... What is the measure or the way to transform it into a tradable good and you're still protected without losing control? And this was during the time which was super interested where the GATS, so the General Agreements on Tariffs and Trades, have been renegotiated in the Uruguay round, which ended up in the World Trade Organization. So this was a new set, how also intellectual property was handled under the TRIPS agreement, trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights. And this is where I went to my professor and said, this is something which is of interest. And he said, yeah, let's go for it.
Yeah, interesting. It would be the last thing that I would think about doing because it just, I didn't actually ever have anything to do with lawyers until maybe, 5 or 8 years ago or so, something like that. And I think you learn the importance of it. As business grows and you develop, protecting yourself, protecting your company, protecting your people, it's just so important. But it was never a priority for me. I was much more the science guy, like, I'll just figure this out and then, we'll worry about the rest later. So it's interesting, very interesting to see that, you've come into a biotech career from, we see a lot of finance CEOs. We see a lot of, not so many scientist CEOs. I think it's really interesting from an IP perspective because that has become so important in the industry in the last 2 decades, let's say, or even before.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you go and practice?
No, at the time I worked on my doctoral thesis, I didn't think and expected to end up in biotech, which I didn't know at the time. This was just, as I said, in the German legal studies and the practical part, you have to work as a lawyer, you have to work with a judge, you have to work as a state prosecutor. So really in the practical part. And I had also as a private lawyer in a private practice. And there I had a very good lawyer and a supervisor. And he really wanted to know, are you going to end up in a private practice? Or you're not. And so he challenged me. I did do family law, sitting in front of, women who have been close to a divorce and all of that. So, and it was clear this is not what I really could handle because there's there is a lot what you have to bring. And also then to deal with problems which are existing and then solve it. It's rather, for me, it was better than to take the decision, why not to sit on the other side to use the law as a tool to avoid problems, to create something, and not in a private practice. So therefore, the private practice was excluded. And this is where I came, also criminal law was more driven by exclusions, what not to do. And the civil law, how to write contracts, included with the international perspective, international contracts, that you need to have, certain developments which are happening on the international field. And this is how I came to the, GATT agreement negotiations, which was on multinational kind of negotiations, to say, that's super interesting. And this is how I then came to that topic and say, okay, how to transform something which is actually happening, innovation, to transform it into something which can be tradable. And what are the underlying agreements? What's the underlying understanding? And this was more a theoretical approach. I came to that topic, and by that already had excluded my... well, it was quite clear that I'm not ending up in a private practice.
Well, that's more of a reactive. There's a problem. Now we need to fix the problem. Whereas what you were attracted by was, hey, let's make sure we don't have one.
Exactly.
Okay. So what was your first job?
My first job, well, this was something completely different again. So I worked a while at the university. And my idea was to work in an international court, because that's exactly where You have got these international cases, and you can look. And during my practical part, I was working 6 months at the European Court of Justice, which was super interesting. You had this international atmosphere. You're coming into this, house where you have got different languages.
Is this Brussels? Or?
No, it's in Luxembourg.
It's in Luxembourg. Okay.
And this was super young people and super, but it's very hard to get in there. And, not just finished my legal studies completely was just too high as a bar. So this is where I had to learn, okay, I applied even there, and they said very diplomatically, that's nice, but we have got people here, apart from these stagiaires, what I was for a certain period of time, these 6 months, said, well, we have got more experienced people. That guy, for example, he is a professor at Cambridge and he's working here. I said, okay, that was too big to make this experience. No, I changed into industry. So that was my first job. I went as a personal assistant. So friends of mine went into private practice or went, be a young judge. And I was offered a job in the fishery industry.
In the what?
In the fishing industry.
Fishing industry. Okay.
By two guys, super experienced entrepreneurs who took out an entire group of companies globally, and which were in the fishing industry, running fish factory trawlers in the Bering Sea in Far East, having had some companies in Chile as well, and so. These guys bought out of a bigger company, that company group, and said, okay, we need a young assistant, best a lawyer, who can restructure this company group out of 40 companies, I think it was. And this sounded interesting, also combined with a lot of traveling and all that, which I liked very much, to think out of the box and travel, which was super interesting. Coming from the countryside, I wanted to see something more, which was a fun part, and this is what I did.
So it's interesting you say that your friends were going into private practice, others were becoming judges, and your job title was personal assistant, which conjures up the thoughts of, getting coffee or, running out to get, donuts or croissants or something like that. I mean, I'm aware it wasn't, but the title itself, a lot of people would shy away from that. These days especially, I find that a lot when we're recruiting at all different levels. People will be very interested in what their title is, and if it's not the right one, they'll turn us down in the first conversation, say, no, it's not a right career step for me, without thinking about the actual content of the role. I have two questions. One, why would they call it that? Because you're a lawyer who's going to restructure 40 companies. I wouldn't really call it a personal assistant role. And two, then why would you take the job when it kind of, let's say, I'm just imagining everybody graduates, you're all going off to different places, and you meet up again with all your buddies from university. What are you doing? Oh, I'm a private practice, family law, I'm going to partner track. And this one's, I'm a judge, and then you're like, I'm a personal assistant. Was there any of those thoughts going through your mind at the time?
No, not at all. For different reasons. First of all, you have to see, I was just coming from university.
Yeah, but you had a PhD. I mean, this is...
Absolutely, but there was not this understanding, which I have today, okay, what is a title? What is a business card? I hadn't had a business card until then. The other part is, you have to see, this was 98. And it was a pure German company, and I didn't think about that. I started thinking about it when I saw, I was traveling quite a lot. And I did get then business cards from others. And then I started to compare. So I hadn't even the idea to compare. The other part is 98, there were personal assistants, and with the understanding what a personal assistant is today, they were called secretaries.
Yeah.
So they've been sitting there doing the typing. We hadn't had a computer. So I had a dictate machine. And then I gave it to those ladies, and they typed the contract as I had to formulate it then on a little cassette. Later on, certainly, the more I realized what is the world I'm in now, and I went back to my boss and said, well, can I have another title? when the company group was rearranged. And he said, yeah, you can have another title, but you need to have another job as well, because we rearranged the entire legal structure of the companies and of the holding companies, and say, okay, now I want you to go into sales. So it's not like fish selling on the market one by one. These are contracts of thousands of tons. You're selling per year, and then you have got a supply chain to bring the fish frozen into the fish factory. So all of that, he said, yes, you can do it in sales, and then we can make you a sales director. And or whatever, but the title itself was never a concern, because it was more what I was doing, and this was a privilege. Why did I do that? I wanted to do that because I wanted to understand how industry works, and what better than to go to someone who is leading a company, is owning the company and leading the company. And yes, of course, I had to, carry all the stuff and bring there, but I was always in the room. I was literally always in the room dealing with governments, negotiations on the quota. I learned how to deal with business partners, that a word is a word. So if you say, okay, this is a contract, even 1,000-ton contracts have been done by handshake.
Yeah.
And so this is what I learned, and this is what I enjoyed very much. And this is what I was expecting, apart from the traveling part, which I enjoyed very much as well.
Okay, so you became a salesperson. Had you ever had any sales experience?
Before?
Yeah.
No.
You didn't, I don't know, sell newspapers on the corner, or did you have a part-time job when you were a kid? Anything?
I did when I was at university. I was working at a petrol station.
Okay.
During the night times, which was good money. I had a car, and I did get the petrol a bit cheaper than others as well. So that was good for me.
Okay, but no sales experience before that.
No.
Did they train you?
Yeah, training by doing. So I followed my boss, who was certainly also as an owner. And so he had his sales region was US, Canada, and UK. So the English-speaking part of the world, and was also negotiating fish quota in South America and also in the Russian area. And so I was always with him, and then had to write the minutes and all of that. So this was learning by doing in the purest sense.
How long did you do that job for, or how long were you with that company?
4.5 years.
Okay, and then?
Well, that for private reasons. So at that time, this was 2002, I was together with my then girlfriend, today wife, 11 years.
Okay.
And we said, okay, and she was working in the southern part of Germany. I was working in the northern part of Germany, Bremerhaven. So if we want to found a family, we should find a way to move closer together. And this is then when I changed, and completely changed, not only geographically. We moved together in Karlsruhe, and so the southern part of Germany. But also, of course, there is no fishing industry. All what I learned from the sales part, I gave up and went back to the legal roots again. And so this was the first time ever I entered into and joined a biotech company. Okay,
which one was that?
This was a company called Lion Bioscience. That was a company out of the new economy. It was, it was bioinformatics on the one side, but also lab space for oncology products. And this was new economy. I was part of the legal department, writing contracts, going with the BD guys again, going with other guys to learn how this industry works, which is completely different. That was, luckily, I have to say, a stock-listed company, listed at Nasdaq and listed in Germany, at German Stock Exchange. And then after I joined, 3 months later, the general counsel left the company. New economy, this was a business model was not working out. 2002 was already, the start of the end of that bubble. And so I had to learn this rapidly, certainly with support of others, and then had to take over the general counsel position.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So you hadn't really practiced much law in 4 years?
Oh, I did. Okay. So the restructuring of that one company, certainly you had to deal with Cyprus law. You had to deal with South American law, because this was a holding structure, all of that. So during these 4.5 years at that company, 3 years have been heavily loaded with international law aspects on the civil law and corporate side to rebuild this company.
Okay, fair enough. Back into biotech, became general counsel. Was that a long role that you were in there? Was that?
Yes. At that company, because it's a history like always, in that company I did do this for 4 years as well. And then there was a management change in that company. And with the new management, they've been looking for a new general counsel as well, more or less second line management. And then I changed into another company, Sirona, today Dentsply.
Yeah,
exactly. Because they wanted at that time think about doing an IPO. This was a spin-off of Siemens in the previous history, and then say, okay, now we are, under private equity, and we're thinking about an IPO, and this is what I did the last years at Lion, with all Sarbanes-Oxley, which came up, all the reporting stuff, exactly,
I remember.
and then the annual report and all of that, which is highly regulated. And I joined that company, which is just around the corner at Spensheim, so it's not that far away from Heidelberg. And that company then has been sold, so did not go IPO, has been sold within 4 months' time. So I started in January. And then in April, May, the company has been sold. It was quite clear that I was not going to stay. This was then ruled out of the US and was then reverse merged with another company to bring it to the US stock exchange. And during that 4 months, also my previous company, the management which came in was out again. So and a friend of mine, or a very close colleague, which became then a friend, said, okay, I'm now the new CFO. And we need to take action here. So don't you want to join? I said, okay, I can help you and do that. But then I have to see what my next career step is. So I went there and helped. And
okay, so you were quite wary already. Like, okay, had you thought out your career? I mean, from the beginning? I mean, this is a question we get a lot. Is that, hey, I'm graduated, got my PhD in law, and there's my goal, and here's the steps I'm going to take to get to it. Or were you planning on the fishing industry, following by biotech, following by dental? I mean, what was the goal at the beginning, or was there one?
The goal in the beginning was to find a job which really helps me to understand business. Because I knew out of my practice, out of university and all of that, it was clear not to be the academics. It was clear not to be a judge. Working in the international field, yes, okay. And then it was quite clear how companies work. And this is why I then was completely into this first job, even though it was a fishing industry. But it was a lot of structuring, what is a strategy, better understanding on finance, where I had no clue at all. And what is a strategy, what is an annual report, all of that. That's what I learned. That was a goal there. Then for personal reasons, I was driven to change, which brought me then to biotech, because I wanted to go to Heidelberg because of my girlfriend, and that was a job where I was coming the closest to what I can offer and bring to the table. And then thinking about the career was exactly in biotech. I said, okay, if I'm, coming more or less also by surprise to be a general counsel, to then deal with new topics like stock market, investors, what you have to do. This was super. This was a part of the entrepreneurial thing, which I've not even knowing at the time that this really was a topic which is important to run a company. So I did get at the time, in my position as a general counsel, in contact with investors, with regulators from the finance industry, analysts and all of that, how that works, but also writing contracts for business development deals, dealing with scientists and say, okay, what is it what you need in order to do a good contract? So what is the goal? Tell me what is the goal, what you're driving. Only then I can write a good contract. So I went with the business development. And then I said, after you're doing this for a while, then the ambition kicked in. And so, okay, if I'm doing all of that, so why should I just be the lawyer writing the contracts? Why not to be a business developer as well? Because I love to negotiate. And so why not? And so this is where the ambition came in and said, okay, I'm doing this now for a period of time. And where my friend
What stage was that at? That was when you were going back from Sirona, going back to Lion, and then kind of thinking, okay, well, hey, wait a second, I could do much more.
Absolutely.
That's when it kicked in. Okay.
Exactly. Because then the company was, restructured because of, if you don't get enough money in, this was when the new economy was really, the bubble exploded.
Yeah.
And then you have to see if you have to deal with the money you have. If you don't have a cash in, you should be careful what money you give out. So restructuring of an organization, which is super painful, and then it's a small reduced group, and then you're doing more stuff. And this brought me to the point, okay, if we don't have a business developer now, why is it not that I should do it? You build up your network. It's a small community. After a while, exactly, it works exactly like in the fishing industry. You know your customers. No, it's always, you work in a specific field. And if you're active in the field and you're going out, you will get the business cards of others. You build your network. And this is really which then triggered really this ambition to make career. Where do I want to end up with? And then suddenly it started to say, okay, if I'm doing all of that, I should be promoted and get to the next level.
What age were you then?
Good question. I was 35.
So 35. So before that, let's just say you kind of thought, okay, I'm a lawyer and I'll do my lawyer stuff and that's my job and that will be my job. And it kind of clicked for you at 35 that, hey, wait, I could do much more than this. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely fair.
Yeah? Okay. It's interesting because, like I say, people want to have the plan when they're 25. And it's really interesting to hear, you've arrived to where you have arrived today and the penny didn't drop, so to speak, until you were about 35, realizing, hey, wait a second, I could be the guy. So you went back to help out at Lion, reduced crew, expanded responsibilities. Were you an employee of the company at that time, or were you helping out? Okay, you were an employee. Okay, and your job then became legal and BD.
Was legal, BD, and HR.
Okay,
and then IP as well, because of my background and the doctoral thesis. Of course, there was I'm not a scientist. It's more from the strategic part. So I became then the VP operations, where all of that was, bundled. And because the IP is super regulated as well, and so there was an IP department. And but they've been reporting into me, which again gave me the opportunity to look again into a new kind of field where people had to tell me quite a lot. And when it came back to science, I always went back to my wife as a physician, pediatrician. I went home and said, okay, these are the list of medical questions or scientific questions. Can you help me? Because otherwise I would look a little bit stupid if I come back and always ask the same question. Give me a little bit more of a background.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the people reporting into you. Was this your first leadership role?
That's correct.
Okay. How many people were reporting in?
Well, it started with 3 and then it went 5. So it's small. It was a small biotech company. So after the restructuring, where we have been left with 40 people. After that, there was an acquisition with another or a merger with another company. It was 80 people. And
What was the most difficult piece of new leadership or becoming a leader for the first time, or the biggest learning? I mean, what would you tell people out there who are managing their first employees?
I think the biggest part was talking to a person. You always talk to peers when you don't have direct reports. And you're trying to help out with all the conversations on the private level on all what you have as a topic to deal with. As a leader, this was, for me, the new experience, that there's a request from someone who's reporting into you. Okay, you can give orders, delegate and all of that. But you have to deal with a personality. It is not like typing into a computer and the algorithm is giving you the result, what you're asking for. And then you define your question a bit more if you see that you have been to be imprecise. But you're dealing with a human factor. So people are coming back and say, yes, but I have this and that personal problem, and this, prevents me doing this and that. Or the chemistry between two persons are not working out like that, and it is not that this is a friend relationship. It can be,
Yeah.
But first of all, it is, okay, we have got this professional topic to be executed. I need a result. And this is my expectation. First of all, to express all of that in an accurate way that the other person is understanding in it. And then to get the acceptance as a leader is not coming with, we talked about it, by the title. Definitely not.
Yeah.
Even if you're a VP or you're a C-level or whatever, the acceptance of you as a leader is not coming with the business card or the title standing on it. And this was certainly something to learn, which even today it doesn't stop.
So has to be earned.
Has to be learned and has to be earned.
Or earned, yeah, that's what I meant. Has to be earned. Okay. So Lion, that went on for, second time around.
This was another 8 years. So this was,
wow.
Help out. But it was interesting. It was interesting because with the new company after the restructuring, new kind of topics came up. So there was a stock listing, as I said before. Then there was a delisting in the US. From a legal perspective, super interesting, I really have to say. Then a merger with another company. So M&A, which was not a topic for me before that at all. Super interesting. Then post-merger integration of another company. Then we sold off parts of the company as part of the restructuring. So the topics have been so interesting. And then certainly also the team we have been working with was super close because we had to live all through these topics, which brought the team closer together, trust and accountability, responsibility, all of that. So this was super interesting time.
Okay. You ultimately left that role. Was that when you joined CureVac? Or?
That's right.
Okay. What drew you there, or what drove you to make the change?
Ambition, I would say, because I was more than 7 years on the same role, VP operations, and I said, okay, now what we talked about before, where I didn't care that much about title and whatnot, it was more the content. But now saying, okay, I'm ready to take responsibility. So I went back, first of all, to the management, C-level, CEO and CFO, and said, okay, I was also a company's group. At least I want to be a managing director, at least of a sub-company.
Yep.
But just to stay as a VP operations, that's not good enough. So that was at the age of 42. And because otherwise there is no move. But I see that I do the job. So
how many people were in the company at that time?
Roughly 80.
So 80. But there's a ceiling, right? There's nothing else for you to do in a structure of that size, right? I mean, would that be fair to say?
Well, from the content of my work and responsibility, you're absolutely right. So I did do the legal work. I was a VP operations. But to say, okay, I want to have a recognition, also to be promoted because I'm doing more than a VP operations would do. So make me managing director of a sub-company.
Right. I want to flip it a little bit now because when we lead companies and we're in structures that are, let's say, 80 is not tiny, but it's not huge either. There are limited opportunities to advance people. How have you managed that in the past? Flipping it, knowing that you have somebody who's really performing well, but there is no structure for that person to move into a bigger role. You risk losing a high performing talent versus creating a position which maybe is unnecessary. I mean, have you had to deal with that since, in terms of?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you have got ambitious and you want to have ambitious people, you really want to have.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to push people to do the job. You want to have ambition. To steer people, you need to have this driving force of the people to bring them in the right direction and say, no, this is working, this is not working, but not to push people in order to do it. So ambition is super important also for new hires. And then certainly you have to see where your boundaries are and you need to talk openly about it. And yes, you are running the risk to lose people if they say, well, my ambition I cannot fulfill here. Maybe in terms of content, maybe someone wants to be a leader, wants to enter into the C-level, but all the positions are set. Yes, you're running the risk, but you're always running the risk. If you don't have ambitious people, you're running the risk to work against the interests of the company.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Okay, so what did CureVac offer? In terms of what did you get to do there?
Well, I start with what the other company could not offer, and I played it very openly. And exactly what your question was for me, I took the decision. Okay, if I'm getting here now to this glass ceiling for good reasons, it's
that's okay.
That's okay.
It's a limited structure. You can't become the CEO.
Exactly, or to enter the next step. But is it the end for me not to enter the next step? And I came to the conclusion, yes, but no. I want to take the next step, but not here. And I played it very openly and said, okay, after what we've been going through, and I said, personal relationships, friendships, and I said, this is what I'm going to do very openly. And I applied for other jobs, but what was a trigger point why it then happened was only for me then to say, now I took the decision and I openly discussed it. With my boss and my friends, with the team there, and say, I'm going to leave. This only released me then to go out and really look for another job. Before, I always was looking, I was approached by headhunters, but you're sitting warm and safe in what you do right now. So there was not the pressure, most probably. And then I went out and I knew the CEO of CureVac at the time. And I told him as well, I'm going to leave now Sickness. The company was, after the merger, renamed into Sickness Pharma. And he said, okay, you're open for, we are at CureVac, we are 80 people, and what you're doing is interesting for us, and why don't you join us? And this is how this came.
Okay. So what did they offer? I mean, it's an 80-person company. You're leaving to join another 80-person company. What could they offer to you, or was there a path that you saw? Were there plans that they talked about, like, okay, we have ambitious growth plans, or we've got cash, or we've got backers? What was the what made you say yes to that?
What made me say yes was a vision. So the CEO Ingmar Hör and the founder of the company said, "See, this company has been founded in 2000, and this is what RNA can do, and this is what we have to do in order to, the molecule will make its way. But I want to be sure that it's us who helps the molecule to go, to be medically applicable." And we are 80 people. We had a common shareholder at the time, so the company I was with before, and CureVac as well. And this is also how I met Ingmar, which is Mr. Hopp, the SAP founder. As a private investor, he invested into that. And Ingmar was saying, well, shall we not go then to Mr. Hopp and say, okay, this is what we want to run clinical trials. At the time, there were clinical trials for CureVac as well already at the time, and manufacturing in a small scale. And he said, okay, he was selling his vision perfectly well, I really have to say, and say, this is what we have to do. If we want to do all of that, we need to have a plan, more people to grow the company at a bigger scale. We need to go out to raise more money, and I need a sparring partner to work together in order to exactly do that. There were a management, and therefore I'm offering you, and I said, yes, but I'm not coming as a general counsel because you're a private company. All of, that I had to give up again because there was no stock listing at the time. And I want to have, that's my only precondition, I want to be on the C-level. Well, there's always, like in life, there's a price coming with it, because then I stood there, and this was an engagement for 13 years until the very end, where my family was still in Karlsruhe, and I moved to Tübingen during the week, and during the weekend. So we changed our life. So that was a cost coming with it. But this is why it changed. Okay.
You mentioned the vision there. How important is that for you when you're hiring somebody, or as a tool? Clarity of vision. When you're communicating with somebody you're potentially going to bring onto your team, has that been something that you've utilized in seeing it with Ingmar? Or was that something that you'd kind of seen for the first time, where somebody really painted this clear picture for you and you said, oh, I can get on board with that? Because obviously I'm really interested in hiring and how people make decisions to join companies. And we've seen that when we have hiring managers who are so clear in what it is they want to do and what the people will do when they get there, it makes the decision much easier. Is it something that you've utilized when hiring?
Yeah, I think it's an important part. We are in the biotech industry. Biotech by definition is not fully financed. And there's a risk coming with it that you don't have the argument to say, oh, we have got a top line, we have finance, and our products will be the substance to pay all the paychecks and all what comes with it. But the vision is the important part, even if you are hiring for a G&A position, to say, this is a vision, what we want to do, and this is what we can do. We have got an experienced team who really want to develop drugs which are not existing today to meet an unmet medical need. And you see immediately from that, let's call it a soft factor argument, to see someone is buying into it or not, because it's not just a job. And we talked about ambition of people. You really want to have ambitious people. Of course, you have to offer something. But the underlying idea in all of the biotech companies I've been in, also at LimmaTech I'm right now, these people are all super ambitious to execute on the vision. And that's, I would, perhaps it's not unique to biotech, but it's certainly super important in biotech. And of course, this is a topic in hiring people.
Okay. So you were at CureVac during a pretty big growth period. And I had a chance to look online and read up on kind of your time there a little bit. Can you tell us what happened at the beginning of COVID?
Yes, I can.
I just thought it's such an interesting story, but you're going to tell it way better than I read it. So,
I joined CureVac in 2012, beginning of 2012, and as a chief corporate officer and then COO later. And RNA has been used also by other companies. Biotech has been founded in 2008. So CureVac in 2000, Biotech 2008, then Moderna in 2010, 11, if I remember correctly. And all of those companies have been working on RNA, on oncology, but also on prophylactic vaccines, rabies and flu and these. And then in 2020, COVID came in. So RNA was not new. There were clinical data and all of that. COVID came in, and this completely changed the world. For me personally, but certainly for, as everyone knows now, for RNA as well.
Yes.
And at the time I joined the company, CureVac had been 80 people. When it was a Friday, I put it down to that very date where everything changed more or less. Was Friday the 13th of March. Management changed. Ingmar came in as a new CEO again. And then he suffered on that day a stroke. So an aneurysm was exploding in his head. And we have been 300 people around-ish at the time. And saying, okay, now COVID kicked in very heavily. We started already at the time in January with the program. And it was quite clear that that program needed to be accelerated because COVID was coming in. Nobody knew what this was. It really a pandemic taking over? And yes, it came more heavy than everyone thought for a long period of time. And so we had this question now to say, okay, to run a program big like that, super accelerated into phase 3, phase 1, 2, 3 as normally. Secondly, to scale up the organization, because with 300 people you cannot do it, and to get the financing, because roughly calculated that program would cost more than $1 billion, and the company had at the time money for 4 months or 5 months. That's it. And so Ingmar was suffering this aneurysm, and we didn't know even whether he would survive. And then there was a question, okay, who's going to take over the CEO position now? We have, to run and get the things done. So this was a trigger point, I would say, for the company, for the RNA technology, but certainly for me as well.
So who took over as CEO?
I discussed with my wife first. Then I discussed with the team. Everyone said, okay, well, who else? It's you, 13 years in, at the time, 8 years in the company. It should be you, because you know all what it is. You have been working closest with Ingmar, and it's you. So I did.
So CEO has an aneurysm, COVID breaks out. You guys are one of 3-4 companies in the world with deep experience in RNA. You have 4 months of cash, and you've got a brand new job and 300 people to lead and a manufacturing to scale up, I imagine, and also a huge amount of people to recruit.
Yep.
It sounds a little stressful.
Yeah, it was not boring, I would say.
I lead a very small company, and there are definitely stresses associated with that. And having spoken with other biotech leaders, especially these days when they're all looking for money and it's not necessarily raining down from the sky like it was 5 years ago, it's stressful by definition. Mm-hmm. How did you manage during that time not to? I mean, we can just throw ourselves into the work, obviously, and that can be fine for a while, but it's not sustainable unless you have something to balance. How did you manage to balance that?
Well, first of all, focus on the tasks which are on the table, what has to be done, again, and try to structure it in the way that you really have this under control. So to bring it to a high level where you say, okay, we need to build the organization, we need to raise money in order to do what we have to do and to build the manufacturing.
Yeah.
Apart from that, also we need a partner, because a biotech company scaling up according to our, this was really a vision to execute together with the regulatory authorities to develop a vaccine within 1.5 years. We have been a bit behind because we had first to raise the money, because there was, as I said, we hadn't had the money and we hadn't had a partner at the time. So that was one of those, stay super focused on really the essentials.
Right.
A second part is, as I said, I went back to the team and we talked about it, leadership before. You're talking to peers, which have been my colleagues in the management at the time, and said, can we do this together and do you trust me? Because without that, and this is my lesson, you are not doing anything alone, independently in which position you are, and as a CEO, even more so. So I needed that team. We've had the fortune that we have been working for a long time together. Yeah. And I said yes. And the third part is, to generate it, I could generate my safe room. It's really a secure room, which is my family, my wife and my son. So during the weekend, I was there. And as soon as literally I physically felt it, going into the entrance door of our house in Karlsruhe was really, I was in a safe room. They suffered a lot because I was completely defocused and certainly, not the most calmest person you could.
I can imagine.
But this was really where I really recharged my energy and my batteries, which and to have had this kind of safe room was super important for me as well. And a fourth point, perhaps, there I had a coach as well, who I could call, completely outside business, outside just a pure coach by the purest sense, who, I always could call, and who also had the skill set to bring me down here in a while. So that was a second kind of safe room where I could say, okay, this is where I can get support. And then of course the job was super interesting. Yes, it was stressful, but hey, what a chance.
Well, I mean that's pretty amazing. I mean, you were CEO of a company in that time in the RNA space during COVID. I mean, it was, we spoke to a lot of those companies, and we dealt with them quite a bit. And it was a flurry of activity. I mean, and for us, it was also extremely busy because the demand for talent just went through the roof. Yeah. I mean, you grew from how many people? What was the ultimate?
Around about 300 people in March 2020. And then when I left in end of March 2023, we have been 1,200.
So quadruple the size of the company in 3 years. Yeah. Okay. That's no small feat.
No, there were, and that at a time nobody was able to travel. So we even opened up new departments, and at the same time hiring the department head, who had then to hire his team. Yeah, and we didn't see the people once, in person. We didn't see the people just by screen. Yep. And certainly we have been working with a lot of service providers helping us, because otherwise it would have not helped. But what was also, I will, because of that, I'm really thankful, not only because of this experience, but also to individuals that, the vaccine field is super consolidated. There are not a lot of vaccine companies. And so, as I said, we needed partners. We did deal with GSK at the time. And GSK wanted to do vaccines, but not COVID. And so there was a deal with CureVac, everything but COVID. But to deal with the pharmacovigilance, so where you have to follow up with all the people injected, even after the product is approved, we needed someone because there was no infrastructure. So I reached out, thought, okay, I can give it a try by an introduction of a friend to the Pharma CEO of Bayer. And he picked up the phone and believe it or not, so Bayer was supporting that program, although it's not known as a vaccine company, but pharmacovigilance they can do, and also logistics. At the time, nobody could travel. And Stefan Ulrich said, okay, I'm going to support you, which they did. They even, allocated people to us in order to help us. And these were the kind of moments as well where, small biotech is talking to big pharma, even C-level, where you normally don't get access to, or to politicians and say, okay, what you do is interesting for us. And so you get on the political level as well, which is super inspiring that we talked about this vision, what the biotech industry is doing, like what LimmaTech is doing, this vision, this experience, this vast experience of people who have been working more than 2 decades, like LimmaTech on antimicrobial pathogens and building vaccines against it. You don't find these people just going on the street. It's and this is what is recognized by others, by politics, by pharma industry, if there is a need. And at the COVID time, of course, there was a big need.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're following the news, we all know what happened with CureVac very recently. I mean, sold for $1.25 billion, if I remember the number correctly. But that was after you had left, and you joined actually a company which would have been closer to size as Lion when you went. I mean, LimmaTech is a company I know quite well. But when I saw that you joined, I was really interested to see, and I want to talk to you about it today. It's like, okay, I mean, I think it's a wonderful company, but from somebody who now is leading it, I think it's really interesting to understand kind of what attracted you about LimmaTech and Zurich. I mean, we don't need to talk about Zurich, really. Let's keep it to LimmaTech, but it's really, again, another big shift. Spending time down here during the week, that's, again, something you've been used to doing over the years. But to find this little company in Schlieren that you say, you know what, that's my next project. What was interesting about it?
So I think the company found me. I was approached to meet with the team at LimmaTech. I said, yes, why not? It's a vaccine company. So I stepped out of CureVac because this was transforming into oncology company because the vaccines or a close engagement with GSK. CureVac signed a deal with, and so I said, okay, let's go out. And that was a point of time when I was approached, why don't you visit the team? And it's a super interesting company. And I said, okay, what is it what I can contribute? This was before I met the team. Because, I'm not a scientist, I cannot contribute to that. And if a team is together for such a long time, and interesting part of LimmaTech is that LimmaTech is the successor company of Glycovaccine, which has been acquired by GSK in 2015, taking over everything but the team, which then has been put into LimmaTech. And so the expertise is much deeper and longer than the company is existing since 2015. So I said, okay, scientifically, from a technology point of view, everything is in good order. So what is it what I can contribute? And so, okay. But go and find the team, and the team will tell you. And so this is what I did. And to answer your question, what is it, what was the trigger point here, was I was sitting in front of the management, Patricia, Mike, and Paul, and I asked the same question, what is it, because you know exactly what you're doing, and you're super efficient. And of course, before I went to visit them, I asked a few contacts I have in the industry. Do you know that company, and what do they stand for? Because they have had, obviously, connections with GSK and other pharma companies and KOLs, key opinion leaders. And they all said, well, it's a hidden champion. That company they know what they do. They work like a Swiss clockworks. So gearing wheels, or however you call them, they are working accurately. They are only telling you what they do, and they do what they told you, and they are delivering in time, and they are super reliable, and from a scientific point of view, top notch. I said, okay, that's super interesting. So I met them, and they've been sitting there and said, yes, we are looking for a new CEO. And, to be part of the team, we invite you. I think it's happening very rarely that a management team is asking you to join as a CEO, which certainly is very super interesting and very nice. So super nice atmosphere. Second part is the vision again. What they transported is a vision. We have got, there are vaccines against viruses like COVID, flu, RSV, whatever. But we are focused on microbial infectious disease, not antibiotics, but vaccines to protect people to get the infection in the first place and the effects of the disease. And by that, keeping people away from taking antibiotics because they are not infected. And by that, if you're taking less antibiotics, you're reducing the antibiotic resistances. And in some areas, antibiotics are not working at all, so there is no cure. So this is a vision which brought up, and there is hardly any company out there like LimmaTech. And this is what I was asked to join to build out strategy, support the new financing. This was at the time that team had already organized a Series A with new investors. So I talked with the new investors. They said yes, because fundraising was one of my jobs in my previous job, where we brought CureVac to NASDAQ in 2020 in August and raised $2.5 billion to finance all the
$2.5 billion. That's pretty good.
But driven certainly by that story that COVID was there, and to generate and to develop a product takes a lot of money. And this is said. They said, okay, this is what you bring, and this is our expectation, and why not to put the strengths together? So I went back to my wife, and I said, when I came back, I said, I think we have got a problem, because certainly we had other thoughts what I could do, join supervisory boards on whatnot after I've been 13 years away from home. Okay, now you're closer to it. My wife realized already me sitting then at that time 6 weeks at home was not a good idea. She was working. I was coming home with great ideas what to do. And she said, you better should engage yourself again.
Get
somewhere.
out there. Yeah.
And after the second meeting then with the team, it was quite clear this is so intriguing what these people do. I met other people in the company as well. So that's really the vision, but also the history of execution, which is enormous. And then with just 50 people at the time around-ish, now we have got 4 clinical trials in a super ambitious team driven by that with partnerships. I mean, this is extraordinary good. I
agree. I mean, 4 clinical trials running with 50 people in a company, 55. I mean, that's it's no small achievement. Yeah. So really incredible stuff. And I've heard it said that this is probably the worst coming healthcare crisis that we're going to have, is the antibiotic resistance in pockets, but also globally, that this could really lead to issues. And so if there are, I mean, this could be something that really is, as you say, an unmet coming medical need in many ways. And it's really interesting to say, yes, it's one thing to have a vision. I can sit here and talk all day, but if I've also got a track record, I think that makes it super attractive.
Yeah.
But on the topic of vaccines, I mean, you've worked in the RNA space. I'd like to understand what you think about what's happening these days, right? We've seen that, Kennedy moving into his new role in the US and the HHS and CDC, and a lot of the funding cuts through the NIH, particularly targeting vaccines. Some people would argue that maybe we've gone overboard in certain countries in terms of the schedules that they put people on in terms of vaccines, especially for pediatric vaccines. And then I've heard arguments, well, the flu shot, it's only 50% effective. What's the point of that? And I think that vaccines have had a huge impact on human health over the years, right? It's something that we've been actually quite successful with. But we've put that into a bit of a risky spot now. I mean, when people hear RNA these days, they're like, oh, yeah, okay, that's a COVID vaccine. Okay. What are your thoughts on that now as a company operating in the vaccine space and the current, let's say, geopolitical state of affairs?
I think working in the medical field, and you see that there is unmet medical need, these questions, whether or not to approve a vaccine or even a therapeutic, should be answered by science and medical experts. To bring politics into that field is, I think, very risky, because focusing on vaccines, you are not treating people who are significantly ill and trying to get a relief or solution for that medical problem. With vaccines, you are protecting healthy people not to get infected and to suffer the consequences of an infection and the disease. So to destroy the trust that I'm taking as a healthy person, a vaccine, which is going to protect me like a shelter. Just saying vaccines are without any scientific or medical proof, to say we shouldn't take it because it's generating diseases. Again, if you don't have a proof for that, it's super risky. Because if you generate this mistrust or break the trust that the risk-benefit ratio, so the benefit of a vaccine to be protected versus the risk that there can be side effects. And there are side effects sometimes.
Right.
You can get a swelling, you can get fever-like syndromes and all of that because the immune system is triggered. So, but these are medical questions and it can be and should be reasonably inquired and tested before a vaccine is approved. And this is why you run clinical trials. But then to say per se vaccines are not good lead to diseases and there is no medical proof for that. You are destroying the trust, and to build up this trust again that people are taking vaccines. In measles, you see, everyone thought it was eradicated, but then if people don't take vaccines, you see this kicking in again. Yeah. And it is, as a matter of fact, that vaccines have saved so many lives. This is without any doubt. Without vaccines, we would be in a complete different shape and across the world, because a virus as a bacteria, they don't have passports, they cross borders, and in the international world, people are traveling. Infections, and we have seen it with COVID. This is really dangerous. With flu as well, you said. Yeah. Flu is not just with fever lying in bed. There are people, thousands of people dying each year because of flu. Yep. And people don't realize, or if you now from a political level say, okay, vaccines, we don't need vaccines, and there is a kind of, immune response and the body will deal with it. Yes, in a certain way it does, but these questions should be answered by medical questions and not by illogical political arguments. So that's a dangerous fire we are playing with. If this, again, I just can't repeat it, if this trust is just cracked.
Agreed. It's
destroyed.
It's an interesting parallel that we talked about at the very beginning. You mentioned therapeutics, and that's like treating something that's already wrong, which is kind of like practicing private practice law versus developing the contracts that create the trust that allows something to develop, like a vaccine, to maintain that health. So I think there's probably some, what do you call it, a red thread running through those things. Before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you about your mentorship in a segment we call the Mentorship Minute. And this is really advice for either your younger self, somebody at early stage in their career. What's one piece of advice that you would pass on to people who are up and coming these days?
Yeah, well, there is a list of advices you can see that you need to be resilient, because the career is not a line, and you will see a lot of rocks. All of that is generic and is true. My advice is really to sometimes take your time as well to recalibrate with you what you want, but also what you don't want. And to build your career, there are certain opportunities. If you are open, these opportunities will come in if you know exactly what you want. And then also take the disappointments, because things do not work out like they do, and see what is in your room of possibilities. And if you see that, you will find your way. Up to a certain point, you also need to stay strong and say, okay, if I'm not, and this is intrinsic, if I cannot get to the next step, what I really want, what is the reason for that? So it's an analytical point, and try to get your team aligned, which is you should do in a company as you do in private life as well, and get your safe rooms as well for yourself to where you say, okay, this is where I'm safe. This is exactly what I can do and not do, and these are the people I can rely on. And perhaps the last point is network and relationships with your employees, with your team. Is super important, because this was always, when for me an opportunity came up, was always combined with people.
Right. Hey, Franz, thank you so much for spending the time. I really appreciated it.
Thank you very much, Maurice.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Leadership Lab, where we dissect life science success stories. If you enjoyed that, please check us out and follow on Spotify under Leadership Lab. If you don't want to miss any episodes, be sure to follow Headcount on LinkedIn or subscribe to the Headcount YouTube channel. And as always, we thank Headcount for making this possible. If you don't want to miss out on any of the latest job opportunities in the life sciences industry, please check out the newest roles at headcount.ch.